following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoneman and I'm your host on this program. On Perspectives, we take a look at primarily local issues that are affecting voters and taxpayers, residents here in the city of Nashua. And if you've been following the news, you know there's a lot happening these days. Of course, we have COVID-19 and the government's continued response to this pandemic. And this affects how we conduct business and affects how our kids are treated in schools and what kind of schooling and education system we have active in the city right now. And again, if you've been following the news, you know there's some controversy developing on how Nashua and particularly the public health department and their influence over the school district, how it's coping with this and how it's affecting families and specifically families of kids in the public school district and the kids themselves. We have some controversy here in the city, and we're going to talk about that today. I'm here in the studio today with Alicia Houston, who is a parent in Nashua, who has a couple of kids in the Nashua School District, who's very involved and very active in what's happening here in the city. We'll talk with her about these issues. Alicia, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate yours. I think the folks at home are going to appreciate it too.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, there is a lot going on.
Yes.
And I'd like to start with some of the background on your family, your situation here. How has this affected the way your kids are going to school and all this in the last, 9 months now, really, or 10 months or so, since COVID breakout has kind of become a national issue?
Of course. So a little bit of background is that I have 2 children in the Nashua School District. We have 3 in our home. One resides in a different state. But I have a sophomore and a 6th grader in the Nashua School District. And for the past 9 months since March of 2020, my children have been solely remote learning.
Prior to that, they were going to school,
Yep.
like everyone else, 5 days a week, and
Yes.
it was a pattern that we've grown used to. Kids go to school, parents work, and whatnot, and the education and the camaraderie, the
Yes.
social development.
Social and emotional is huge right now. So I think that for my family personally, it's been a learning experience. There's been some really great eye-opening pieces of this where I've learned a lot more about how my children learn having them home with me. I have gained a new fondness of teachers in the classroom because I have had to deal with, teaching the things that the teachers are trying their very hardest to convey to the kids. But there's also a negative aspect to it as well. I know that my children personally, and at least over 1,000 other families are really, really struggling with the concept of remote and how it's being delivered to the Nashua School District children.
Yeah, I've got a neighbors across the street who have a couple of kids in the Nashua School District as well. And they both work. And prior to the COVID-19 issues that have come about, those kids would go to school, parents could go to work, and everything was working out fine. Everyone had their own schedule. Now the kids are home, and it's very difficult. Parents are not able to work the same schedules they did before. And I think that one of the things that they've discovered too, you talked about what parents have discovered. What they discovered is in the course of that 6-hour day, how much classroom time there really is. It's not very much. And I was talking to a friend of mine some time ago who homeschools their child, and he said, 2 hours, 45 minutes, we're pretty much done for the day. And I said, that's it? And he goes, yeah, that covers all the subjects. And I think that parents are finding that as much time as the kids spend away at school, a lot of that time is not spent in the classroom or not spent getting instruction. So parents are discovering certain things about how
Yeah.
class is conducted, whether it's at home
Yeah.
or in the classroom. And there are some difficulties, too, that parents and families are encountering
Yeah, of course.
with having to stay home, having the kids home all the time.
Yes. So I agree and I disagree on some of the items from a personal perspective. I'm actually one of the administrative members of the leadership team for a group called the Nashua Parent Voice. If you are a Nashua parent and you are having a really hard time with the concept of remote learning and would like to see a way to come together with the teachers and the students, please feel free to send a request for membership to the Nashua Parent Voice on Facebook. Sorry, shameless plug.
That's okay.
So I think that we've all experienced such a vast learning curve. We as parents have identified some of the things that our teachers are experiencing. And a lot of our teachers are parents and they're learning a lot about, how remote learning is or isn't working. And I think we're kind of in a state of constant flux. Now, from my perspective on what the issues within the district is we don't have a plan that encompasses teacher safety, student safety, and without that plan, we can't send the kids back to school right now. And we did have a really solid plan. The Board of Ed had actually approved it. It was created and drafted by the principals, which I have to commend them on. They took a lot of time and a lot of energy to come together and instead of complaining about a problem, they wanted to encourage a solution and they were able to do that.
Why should that be so hard?
It's the community and it's
Right.
the coming together part is really difficult. I don't just think in Nashua. I think it's kind of become an issue in basically anywhere you go now. There's a level of humanity that we're missing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people seem to derive their power from saying no, rather than from saying yes. So we had the principals here in Nashua get
Yes.
together and put together a plan
Yes.
that sounded workable. The parents liked it. Did some of the teachers like it? As far
I
as you know?
believe they took a lot of input from their teachers. The principals are really great that we have in the district. And it was kind of an outside the box approach to make sure that we had a plan in place for the kids to return to school safely and that the teachers felt comfortable with. Now, here's where it gets a little confusing. And I think this is where a lot of the frustration is coming from is the Board of Education had actually voted for and approved the calendar and the structure of the principal's plan. And it wasn't until the Monday meeting that shook Nashua to its core, where they had really leaned a lot on the public health department, specifically Bobby Bagley, and now they've changed the plan. So the plan that they voted on and approved,
The school board
the
voted
school
on and
board
approved it.
voted on and approved the principal's calendar. And then I believe it was Sharon Giglio, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Now, is she on the board?
She's on the board. She had filed a motion that we needed to meet 2 metrics that are provided to us from the Nashua Board of Health.
So this was this most recent meeting when
Yes.
Nashua was shaken to the core. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was approved, but then really they looked back at it and said, wait a second, we can't approve that. We
Well,
have to.
they couldn't remember it, some of the members.
Oh, really?
So
When was it approved?
I don't remember the exact day.
A month ago or 2 months ago?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, so it was approved. It was
The
there.
plan has been in place for a while,
I see.
or had been in place for a while, as far as when we were going to roll out. The students were supposed to go back January 19th.
I see.
And, just shy of that, now we have these 2 metrics. Now, the frustration that I'm seeing within the community is that the Nashua Board of Health has provided this data, but we've had a lot of parents that have compared the data to the state's data, and it isn't quite matching like for like. And a good example would be, we don't understand what the calculation itself is. We've asked, and we have yet to have been provided that, or what the calculation and the percentage is, because sometimes the percentage point moves, two places. Then other times it moves one place. There's times when they've moved it up 4 places, and there's no rhyme or reason. And some of those numbers would seem incorrect as far as the percentage. And the other thing that we're taking into consideration is that we're looking at the overall percentage of the population and cumulative or active cases and comparing with hospitalizations and, unfortunately, mortality rate.
That's available from the state.
It is available from the state.
So we've got state data, and then we have local
Yes.
Nashua data, and they're not matching.
Yep.
That's interesting. The Nashua Board of the Public Health, they were pushing for a curfew here in the city of Nashua too, and that did not pass. They pushed for the mask mandate. They got that. I think they probably pushed for the enforcement measures that were subsequently assigned to the mask mandate, and they got that. Then they pushed for the curfew, and that was denied by the Board of Aldermen. So that tells me that maybe there's some level of oversight, and I'll use the term common sense, being thrown into the mix if some of these measures are being stifled, because they're really overboard. At least the Board of Aldermen felt that the curfew was overboard. And now we're seeing that the school district is following the local public health department after they already agreed to open the schools for students on January 19th, and that some of the data that they're using doesn't match the state data. It makes you wonder. Now, you mentioned before we started the show, when we first were talking here, that you're submitting some right-to-know requests.
Yes.
Are you submitting right-to-know requests for some of this data from the health department?
So we have already collectively as a group, some individual and some group complaints, or not complaints, but right-to-know requests. We've gotten some of the data back, but we're really at a place where we need to expand upon that. And really finding out, what does the attendance look like right now for the students? We have parents within the group that they're expressing to us that they had, at one point in person, straight A students that are now getting C's or even failing some courses, which, it's really hard to not look at public health as a whole. I understand that COVID is a very pressing issue, and we do need to take it seriously.
Sure.
So when it comes to the right to knows, we are trying to figure out what are the questions that we need answered right now to help our teachers and our Board of Education to come up with a plan, because I think that it's been made very, very clear that if we have not come up with a plan at the Board of Education level by now, when over 80 districts surrounding us have created a plan, that's where a lot of the parent frustration is coming from, because the goalpost keeps moving.
Well, that's politics in Nashua.
Yes.
I was an alderman for a couple of terms, and I can tell you, politics in Nashua it's an evil thing. It really is pretty bad here, because people are campaigning for power, personal power, not for, really, in my mind, for the benefit of the taxpayers or benefit of the students in this case. So we had a school board that approved a plan, and that public health, maybe city administration, or somehow stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. And
well,
now,
I don't know that it's that they said they can't do it. They moved the goalpost. So instead of going forward with the plan that they had already approved, that these principals took,
had public health approved the plan before?
I don't think that public health has a say in the decision-making authority. I know that they have the ear of, some of the board members, which when you look at politics as a whole, and in the group, we try really, really hard. It's very bipartisan.
Good.
There's no party affiliation.
That's great.
We have done a fantastic job at coming together as, one big family, and we win together and we fail together. But there is always a level of positivity that comes out of it. And we're constantly trying to, again, as a group, as the Nashua Parent Voice, we're trying to come up with collective solutions.
Good.
Instead of just complaining, because complaints without solutions is just complaints.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you're able to, because parents, I understand their frustration.
Yeah.
The kids, if an A student goes to become a C student, clearly that learning environment is not the best place for them. Now, I understand that the frustration has grown so much with some of these parents that some of the parents have pulled their kids out of the Nashua School District. What kind of numbers are we talking about?
So there's at or about 11,000 students in the Nashua School District. Traditionally. At last count, and this number has probably changed, so please don't quote me on it. I think that's one of the things that in one of the Right to Knows we really need to get a handle on.
Yeah.
But as of September, October, it was 860 students had been unenrolled in the school, whether that be, going to a private school, going to a charter school, or being homeschooled. Some have gone to other districts, but that is all at the expense of the parents right now.
And as of what date? Was that in September that number was generated?
September, October.
Okay, so it
once
could
they
be
had the data.
more now
Yes.
because the frustration. I know my neighbors across the street would love to pull their kids out.
Yes.
But they don't have a meaningful opportunity right now. Private schools, by the way, is a private school around the corner from our house that they would like to enroll their children in. They've been meeting in person all this time.
Yes.
So the private schools are doing it.
Yes. The YMCA is doing it.
YMCA is doing
Boys
it.
and Girls Club is doing it. World's Academy is doing it. There are a number of schools that have successfully been. Bishop Girton is another one.
Yeah.
They've predominantly been in person with lower, case transmission rates also. So I think that the major whole of the frustration for the parents, and I'll speak for myself because I don't want to speak out of turn and say that others feel that way, is that we don't know what the answer is going to be. And the Board of Education is displaying essentially systematic failure or systemic failure.
Yeah, I think so. And the Board of Education has had a lot of challenges for a while. With the last election, municipal election last year, or year ago, 2019.
Yeah.
There were some board members that had really received the brunt of, I'll call it persecution and the social media for the things that they were saying and doing.
Yeah.
And I think advocating, in many cases, really advocating for the students. And I think there was a sense that, from the other side, that once they got those people off, they were the real troublemakers, that there would be harmony on the board. And so they voted those folks off the board. I happen to like those folks. I think they did a good job. But clearly, harmony has not been restored.
No,
To the board, and I don't think it was the fault of the people who were voted off, because they're not there anymore, and these troubles persist. But it sounds like the board is not really focused on a child's education; and focused on whatever else, individually, personally, or politically, they're looking at.
So I think, David, you bring up a really great point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. When you have a group of individuals and you are trying to replace individuals to maintain the same group, you're kind of working at a disadvantage, because I don't think that it's just the Board of Education. As I said just a couple minutes ago, it's systemic failure. And, we are at a time where it is such an amazing opportunity for us to grow and transform and, think outside the box. And we have the ability to get creative now. And that's a really powerful thing. But if, we cannot find a group of individuals that can cohesively, respectfully agree to disagree and continue to have the mission and the vision of the board to act at the capacity that they're elected,
Right.
And serve to the best interest of the children of the district. I understand that right now we're in a pandemic, and that has to be also as important. But there's mental health issues that these children are experiencing. I have ample amounts of stories that I would be happy to share with you via email. I can email them to you. I
Great.
have redacted the personal information, not even at the parents' request, but just because I don't think that we want our kids in this fight with us. But it is a fight. And the mental health it's becoming more and more pressing. I spoke with a nurse practitioner today, and she shared with me that a lot of the emergency room visits are not necessarily COVID related, they're mental health related. And we have to think of the children's health and the community health as a whole. I
Right.
know that Bobby Bagley had done a survey or a poll that was specifically identifying a target group. I don't know how many were in that group. We have not yet received that information.
Students or throughout the population?
Children,
Children.
is
Okay.
my understanding. And within this poll, 52% of those children that were polled, and again, I don't know the number,
Sure.
but 52% of the children that participated in this poll are actively stating that they are experiencing mental health setbacks. And for someone in public health, that has to raise your eyebrow and make you question.
It sure does.
Am I doing the right thing? Am I serving the greater good as a whole, or am I only focusing on one part of it? Because to ignore the mental health issue, that's going to cause long-term effects.
It will.
Even after, we get through this pandemic. These are children, and they should not have to feel so isolated and so alone that some of them are even contemplating taking their own lives. And that's not something that anyone in the district should take lightly.
No, it's not. The decision to open schools or not could have that kind of an effect.
I agree.
And that can't be allowed. Now, going back to the classroom is not right for everybody.
Exactly.
But for some kids, it could be the better solution, and for other kids, doing the remote learning could be better. So,
well, it's not just the kids, David. It's the teachers too. We have to take into consideration. So I know that there's been a lot of negative connotation with what the Nashua Parent Voice group is all about, and we're not all about a one size fits all. There is no push for a full return to in classroom 100%. No one is saying that remote learning is not effective. The argument that we have is it's a one size fits some. And so we understand that there's teachers in our district, and we definitely want to protect them and keep them safe with having the remote option, whether it's a teacher with a personal immune compromised system or a child that lives in a household with immune compromised members, or if they themselves have an immune compromised system. We want remote to be an option.
Sure.
It has to be an option for those
the whole idea
students.
of one size fits all just doesn't work. But that's the
It
model
doesn't.
that public schools
Exactly.
generally work by. And that's why charter schools have risen up, because it's not a one size fit all. It's not a factory school system that really works for everybody. We're getting short on time here, but we want to touch on legislation that I think ties into this.
Yes.
And I think about my neighbors across the street, and the cost if they were to send their kids to private school is totally borne by them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're paying property tax
I agree.
to the city and to the state. The money goes everywhere, and a lot of that money, at least half that money, half the city budget is regular public school education. That's a lot of money, over $100 million a year. So this money goes there. The program is not always effective for all the students, and the quality of education is not right for all the students. So different kids might need different options.
I agree.
There's this House Bill 20 that you mentioned that's going through the legislature now. Tell us a little bit about that, what that would do.
So House Bill 20.
How that would help folks.
Yeah, so House Bill 20, and it may not be for everyone, and I know that there's some people that will oppose it, but the overall understanding that I have of it is to put the power of the education back into the parents' hands, and to make sure that the money follows the child, whether that be to a private school, a charter school. Homeschooling is also an option.
Or public school.
And ultimately, it is anyone who is eligible to participate in public education would have the option to access what they're setting up as the educational freedom accounts. And basically that money that traditionally would just go to the public school system, if you unenroll your child, you would theoretically be able to put that money would get put back, and you would have a designated educational freedom account that's attached to your child, and that money would follow the child, whether that be course materials for homeschooling, paying, a portion of the tuition, which would help offset a lot of the financial burden. But it is going through legislation right now. I would definitely recommend paying close attention to it. They're trying to move through that very expeditiously. But there's a lot of legislators that are in support of this because of the situations that we're in right now.
Well, I think it sounds like a great idea. Just so folks at home understand, if a parent of a school-age child in the city of Nashua choose to send their child to a private school or to homeschool, the state money that's allocated to that child, regardless of where they're going, will only go to the Nashua Public School District.
As of right now,
As
yes.
of right now.
Yes.
So the school district gets that money. They don't have that child.
Then the money would get sent back to the government, and then it sits somewhere, and instead of
it doesn't get sent back. They don't give anything back.
Oh, well then
I think they spend it.
I was mistaken. And I'm okay
I don't
with being
think
mistaken.
I'd be surprised if they gave anything back.
Yeah,
if there's $5,000 per kid as a number, I don't know what the number is, that $5,000 goes into the school district, and they spend that on what they want to spend it on. It does not, and the parent that paid some of that money in their form of their property tax doesn't get to direct that money to their own child's education. And it really, that's not fair. In my opinion.
It's not, and I think that, obviously we got to get it through to pass,
Yes.
but it is an excellent bill. Again, it's House Bill 20, and it's the educational freedom accounts.
Okay.
But I think that that's really important.
It's very, very important because this is about education. It's not about systems.
Yes.
This money should be about education for those children wherever they go. I think that's vitally important.
I agree.
We are nearly out of time here.
Yes.
Time goes by fast.
Yes.
I want to thank you for coming in, Alicia. It's
Thank
been
you so
great to
much,
have you here.
David.
And we'll have to stay in touch and have you come in again, and
I
we'll
agree.
get some follow-up on what's happening, especially with this House bill.
I would like to have us get some more parents involved as
We can
well.
work on that. That
Perfect.
sounds great. Thanks. And I want to thank you folks at home, too, for tuning in. My name is David Schoneman. You're watching Perspectives. I'm here with Alicia Houston with the Nashua Parent Voice. Contact information should be on your screen there. If you're a parent for the school district or just a concerned citizen and taxpayer, you should want to know what's happening with their education system or education dollars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.